Hi, today we are talking about, um, or we're answering the question. At high school graduation, some students fall away from the church and actively following Christ. Other students walk in faith a lifetime and continually follow Christ. What do you think is the primary variable that determines the difference? What do you think is the second most important variable? And Sam's gonna kick us off, Kyle will follow, and then Eugene, and then I will close us out.
Awesome. So I know we've talked a lot about discipleship this semester in this discussion series, but I really do think helping students really move throughout the discipleship process. So as far as like making sure they do understand the gospel, and then a lot of times the majority of people who will show up to church just come on Sundays and that's about it. But if you help them say, okay, like how about you start coming out to Wednesdays and just having that really intentional flow. And then also just once they get to that process, helping them have serving roles, local trips, and then like mission trips. And if they get to a point where they really understood the gospel and just really lived it out and are at a point where they can really share it with others, then I think by the time they're a young adult and they're in college, it just wouldn't there just wouldn't be a reason for them to suddenly stop going to church because they really lived out the gospel itself. And then the second variable, I think, is just to have really strong communication, both on the part of the student and not be shy in reaching out for help to either the youth pastor or fellow students. And then the youth pastor and volunteers should also just help their kids once they graduate and say, hey, here's some ministries the college should go to, or here's some churches I researched and heard were good in the area. So I think those are some of the variables that will help.
Whenever I was answering this question, I said that one of the main variables has to do with their personal spiritual life. So if they're having a quiet time and they're maintaining this and it's their own quiet time that they have invested in, it'll help them to mature and grow in their own faith. So that way, whenever they step out of the youth ministry and into young adult life and college ministry, they'll already have their own personal walk that they can use to bolster their faith, to encourage them to go to churches if they're moving away or something like that. And it just is an encouragement to them. And then the second reason that I mentioned was that kids or teenagers, they as they graduate and grow up, they end up a lot of times falling into the same traps as their parents. And so if their parents are really invested and involved in the church, it's likely that they might be too. And if their parents aren't as invested and involved in the church, then they're going to fall into that trap of like sleeping in, like Sam had mentioned, and not going to church and losing that connection.
Hi. So so I think one of the most important variable for this issue with the high school students is the current youth ministries need to be working with the colleges and the college ministries by just giving them, crucial, like Bible tools, like kind of along the discipleship process. That way, when they are ready to leave the youth ministry, they're ready to go. They're not going to just fall away and stop going to church. And a second thing is I think, the job and role of the youth pastors is to really get the youth excited about going to church. Just get them motivated to go. That way, when they get to college, they're not stopping going. So I think it's just important, to create ways, and we also got to see the youth pastors and youth really invest in the youth as they go on leaving. That way they're not just forgetting their time. We create a good time for them in the youth ministry, they're more likely going to want to get involved in a college ministry or a young adult ministry if they're coming from a good experience. So yeah, so I think that is just a few important variables that needs to take place in the youth. So.
Awesome. And so what was interesting about our conversation is the fact that all of us were honestly had a lot of the exact same things to say. So what I might say might honestly just be a reiteration of what everyone else said, because I cannot think of anything else because we all said the same thing. But it's really just having these students really caring about their faith, that they are having their quiet times, that they are really just living out a Christian life. So if we are making sure that they have a strong foundation, then even if they were to step away or have a rocky season, they'd have something to fall back on. And the Lord would be able to just work them through that. The second thing that I mentioned, a little bit more personal story, is just like how involved your youth pastor is post. We understand the fact that a youth pastor cannot connect with every single person that graduates from the ministry all of the time, but there is something to be said about checking in once every year, or whenever you see them hit a new milestone of like graduation, being like, hey, like, I just want you to know that we still have your graduation picture on our wall. And that reminds us anytime that we see it to be praying for you. Or, hey, I even contacted your prayer mentors to be praying for you. Or, hey, we're just so excited to see how the Lord is using you in this new field. If there's anything we can do, let us know. We'd love to grab coffee. Those things speak. I know for me, my youth pastors, I spent a lot of my life with them doing all of these things. And I never got a lot of feedback from them after graduation, even going into ministry, the encouragement of like, hey, like, we're so cool, like excited how the Lord is leading you this way. But old youth pastors that have left before I graduated have reached out to me and continue to show that they want to connect with me still. And that means a lot. So I would say that that's the second thing that's really important. The first one is truly that foundation. If your student doesn't have the foundation, then what are they going to be able to work off of? So that's pretty much what we talked about. It was a really good conversation. Like always, we enjoy these times and we hope that you enjoy listening to them as well. Thank you guys.